All right, welcome everybody. It's your host Matt 10. Here is another FIFA 20 sliders video. Now this is version 2. Primarily difficulty is going to be on, you can go pro, world class, and legendary. Disregard ultimate in general. I know I made a video not too long ago on ultimate difficulty, but unfortunately it's just not happening. The gameplay is very one-sided. It's pretty much a 3v2 attack every time, or defending every time. It's just, everybody's a 99 overall. There's really no point in playing ultimate and adjusting things. Sure, you can make it really unrealistic by lowering acceleration and knowing that the computer's stamina levels aren't ever going to get to the same level as yours, but I mean, what's the point? There's too many issues with it. And on top of that, even after you do that, you're also going to run into issues with the custom team tactics not adhering to the values you've chosen or the computer has. So legendary, and I play 10 minutes, but people can go as low as, I think low as 8, I would say. If you go to 6, just increase run frequency to balance that out, as I always say. But 10 minutes, legendary, play on slow, play on normal, it's up to you. Going into the sliders here though, sprint speed is at 48 a piece for the computer and the user, or user and computer, if we'll go in order here. Acceleration at 50 for the user, and I would suggest you can keep it at 50 if you're going to play on legendary, but if you want to make it more difficult, just raise it up. I'd say about 2 spots, and that'll just ensure that the computer just has a little acceleration bump, as you know, as obvious as that looks, but they get to the ball a little bit quicker. They they have a little higher urgency, if you will, but you'll be surprised that you can still maintain, kind of stay with them. It's balancing out essentially. But if that's really what you want to do to make legendary harder in that sense, definitely do that. And then of course there's obvious values like error values you can lower to certain 50 or under. I'm not going to tell you exact values because I want to make it realistic, and I know people want to make it more difficult, but sometimes difficult doesn't always isn't linear to just being realistic. So if you want to do that, shot error, lower the value. Same with pass error, lower the value to 55, 45, 35, whichever, it's up to you. In terms of the sliders and what we have here, shot error, 70 piece is fine. The reason it's so high, not kind of getting away from our 68 that we had previously, the reason we have it so high is because in one of the patch updates EA released, and also in the pitch notes about it, of how they've increased the shooting accuracy of players in certain radius and certain positions, etc. And so that did affect the shot error overall, and it's very evident. The shots on target have increased, I'd say about 20%. So raising this value is just going to balance that out. It's going to cancel out some of that change, but it's it's not perfect. There's still going to be a high shot accuracy percentage, but 70 is pretty good. You can go even higher if you really want to, but definitely I'd say user beware in that sense. You don't want to get to ridiculous levels, especially if you play on lower minutes under 10. You definitely want to adjust this value to something that's going to kind of balance it out. So, but we have it at 70 a piece. Pass error is at 55 a piece. This hasn't changed. This is just a good in-between value. Still see it sometimes where the computer is trying to pass forward, especially the center backs, and they kind of just mishit the ball a little bit. That happens sometimes, especially on the lower leagues, so don't be afraid to lower this value just a little bit. Again, if you're wanting to increase the difficulty in legendary, then definitely lower this value to whatever you'd like. Shot speed 49 a piece hasn't changed. It's been really good, especially relative to how the keeper moves. The saves just look a little bit more in sync and realistic versus if you go lower than that shot speed, the computer or the goalkeeper will dive a little bit sooner. They'll anticipate a little bit too soon, and it just won't look realistic. They almost look telepathic, and we don't want that. And then on the other side, if you raise the value, the shots are just crazy. Even with the shot error, which should help some of that shot speed, but it's just as crazy. So just keeping it simple at 49 where we've always kept it. The next value here is pass speed at 50. Reason I went to 50 from 48, and then I think we tried 52. 50 is just a good balance between really the driven passes, especially when you hit the driven passes on like a 52. They look crazy. They look like they're going 60, sometimes 70 at 70 pass speed levels. And so keeping it simple at 50. In addition, it does affect the long balls as well. You want to keep the ball up in there a little bit higher, a little bit longer. So bumping that pass speed up, lower from 52 has definitely helped. I know we had it in the previous video at 48. 48 just became a little laboring. It became a little bit where the receiving player would kind of have to run towards the ball every time, and they kind of it just didn't look right after a while, because it'd always be like an underhit hospital pass essentially, and that's not realistic. And so keeping it simple at pass speed at 50 apiece is just fine. It's your personal preference though if you want to go lower or higher. If you go too high and you're expecting that to be how the computer is going to play, you'll be surprised they won't execute certain type of passes that they would at 50 or above 50. So I would say just keep it simple and adjust other values from there. Next is injury frequency and severity. These have not changed, 90 and 40. Still seeing a good mix of injuries and types of injuries and frequencies, so it's not bad at all with where it's at. Goalkeeper ability is at 49 apiece, and that's simply because it hasn't really needed to change. There hasn't been super keepers, there hasn't been like really poor keepers with this, and relative to the shot speed, it's still in sync enough, and that's the most important element to any slider set when you're dealing with shooting and the other side, the goalkeeper reactions. Marking is a new change. We went from 52 and we raised this all the way up to 72. And the reason why, and you'll see in the video following after this, is that simply I wanted to get it to the point where there was a little bit more resistance in the midfield. And having it at 52 made them a little bit more zonal, a little bit more passive in that sense. As I raised the value up and higher, and testing it with certain custom team tactics and different defensive pressures, started to see what was really common is the midfielders, the opposing midfielder, still staying with their man, but then pushing them off into the next zone. And so it was enough the resistance that it really made it difficult, and it made the attention to the ball very important essentially. I know that sounds silly, but sometimes in FIFA the players have ADD essentially. They kind of forget who they're supposed to be marking, or they're marking so tight to one player that they don't move into their zone. So I've paired this up with the marking at 72, but then there's also a change to width to kind of allow that to kind of just cover the field a little bit better as well. So marking at 72 is a really nice change that we've had for a couple weeks now. And no need to go too much higher or too much lower on it. I think it's right perfect where it's at. Run frequency is 2. It hasn't changed. I mean, the main thing with run frequency is you lower it because you want less runs off the ball. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you look at any modern football team, you watch any football on TV or anything like that, the players are not running out of their socks every single time. Counterattacking teams, sure, yeah, that's understandable, and they will counterattack. If you're in a position to counterattack, your teammates will run off the ball. You can manually make them run. You can also use custom team tactics, player instructions, and make certain type of runs there. So run frequency directly doesn't mean they're just going to stop running. It just means they're going to lessen the length of their runs. And so as it's lower, they're going to run, and then they're going to check 2. If they're going to run away, they're going to run away, and then they'll check 2. So it's just, a main common understanding of football. You want your teammates to come near you so you can pass the ball. If you're going to send a ball over the top, send them on a run. They'll definitely run. Don't worry about that. And I've had to kind of clarify that a couple of times for people, but don't worry. Just let it play out and you'll see the runs, and they'll definitely happen. Just to recap, that there's no change between the user and the computer here. So the only really thing is if you choose acceleration at 52 versus 50. But other than that, the values are going to be pretty much the same here. So run frequency at 2 apiece. And then the height, length, and width the height and length hasn't changed. That's still at 51 apiece. And then length is at 45, just gets that nice little compression. Width, though, has changed from 44 to 48. And the reason why is simply we want to increase that width, obviously, to allow more coverage throughout the pitch. What I started seeing on 44 is, let's say, a left center midfielder. He was too tucked in and latching on to the player they're supposed to be defending, or the player the CDM is supposed to be defending. And so they would stay too tight. They would get underneath of the zone they're supposed to be in, or the bank they're supposed to be in, and then they wouldn't meet the player as soon as they receive the ball. So basically, in the end, this just made it really easy to switch the ball with just, a couple passes, connect passes from, from left to right, etc. So that just became very laboring. It became very easy way to attack and very easy way to be attacked. And so increasing this width paired up with that 72 marking, now we get a good little balance of resistance and forcing some of those movements off the ball to be sooner, to be timed better, and to mix up the passing as style and get some variety going. And so it's been a really nice change, and it's still to the point where it's not so wide that the wide midfielders aren't coming into the box, and also the outside backs aren't so far apart, so they're still tucked in goal side the way they should be. So still in good shape there. Fullback positioning at 2 apiece hasn't changed. It's kind of a remarkable value of how the fullbacks can get involved. I really defer anybody who's struggling to see them overlap. Check your player instructions. It's so important this year with anything with FIFA in terms of instructions, custom team tactics. That's a reason why I say Ultimate is pretty much worthless, because you lose that team identity because everybody's a 99 overall and they're ignoring custom team tactics. I mean, the thing is about FIFA, subtle team tactics are really impactful this year, and I'm afraid a lot of people don't even know about them. Did you know that if you change the formation, the player instructions change as well? You're basically resetting the instructions. And so there's just so many little things here, and if you want your players, your fullback here to overlap, you have to set it that way. They're not just going to do it automatically like if you had it at 50 or at 90 or 100 or whatever value. So keeping it at 2 here allows it to be less end-to-end, and it still has that chance, of course, if you send them on a run or if the computer sends them on a run, but it's still enough in which there's a balance for them to get back into position. Last values, first touch controls just went down. This has gone down from 55 to 52. The reason for this is just because simply that we've increased the pass speed for one, and then the pass error hasn't changed. So it's mainly for pass speed is the focus there. But on top of that, as we raised this value, it just became a little hectic, and at times it felt like the computer was playing faster. Similar to FIFA 16, as you raise it, the computer kind of plays hot potato with it, essentially. They don't want to have the ball for too long, so they get rid of it very quickly, and it makes it very tiki-taka, essentially. So lowering this value from 55 to 52 has allowed just a little bit more, possession-based attacks and a little bit better, for players who are outstanding at controlling the ball first time to really stand out. And so that's why this value has just a subtle change to go lower to 52. But overall, guys, that is the slider set for version 2. Thanks again for your patience. I know I've got a lot of comments to catch up on. Appreciate you guys' again, patience for letting me work through all this. And the guys on Operation Sports definitely been testing some of the things I've thrown out, and they've been awesome in testing it and being very thorough with their findings, which has been fantastic for me. I've been out with some ailments, health, family, etc., but should be back to going here again. And getting some content out for sure. And I hope you guys enjoyed the slider set, tested out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Just gonna let the video play on, let this kind of finish up. If you guys have any questions, like I said, let us know. Join the Operation Sports if you haven't already. Best place for sports gaming that you'll ever find. And join the FIFA side of things, and help us with FIFA 21 when that time comes. But in the meantime, guys, I want to thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, take care and stay tuned.